Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. I've been so sick the last few days, so you might still hear it in my voice a little bit, but I'm feeling human again. I'm just so excited to film and talk about all of the exciting books coming out in April. As you can see, I decorated my shelves for spring. I know it's kind of corny that I always decorate my shelves for different occasions, but it brings me so much joy and it's just so much fun for me and I love the way that it looks. So April's huge for releases. There is one day in particular, I think the 18th, where 3 of my most anticipated books of the entire year come out, so that's going to be an expensive day for me, but I cannot wait. And April's also going to be busy because it's Realmathon. My next video will be my Realmathon TBR. I'm still working that out and I'm hoping to fit a few of these on there, so let's get right into this. So starting April 4th, I have Spellbound by F.T. Lukens, whose books I put on all of these lists, but I never actually read them, which is a shame because they all have the greatest covers and I really would like to get to this one. And this is following Rook, who is an intern for like a witch or something, and he happens to have an illegal magical detection device called a Spellbinder, and I think that it is discovered that he owns this device and he ends up on the run with the one person he hates most in the world, and they end up having a romance, which just sounds like a fun setup. Again, this cover is gorgeous. I think this would be a really good time and a quick read, so I hope I can get to that one soon. One of my most anticipated romances of the year is Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana de la Rosa, and this is the first book in a series, and each of the different books are going to be following different sisters in this family. So the first one obviously follows Anna Maria, who is from a wealthy family in Mexico, but she, along with her sisters, who are going to be the future books, have to flee from Mexico to London during the French occupation of Mexico, and she ends up in high society there, going to balls. She's excited to get some freedom from her father, and she ends up in a bit of a romance with a man named Mr. Fox, who is part of Parliament, and he's trying to pass a bill to end slavery, and the last thing he needs is a distraction like Anna Maria, but obviously he can't resist, and this just sounds so good. I love that this is the start of a series following sisters, and I just have such high hopes for this one. Next up we have To Poison a King by C.J. Prince, and this is a new standalone, which is awesome. It's about sacrifice, self-discovery, and a girl tasked with saving the very man she aimed to kill. So she grew up as a healer with her mom, and she worked for the king along with her mother, and her mother actually tells her one day that they need to poison the king. So they do, but it kind of goes awry, and he doesn't die. He ends up in a coma. He wakes up. He's furious. Everybody is on the hunt for who the attempted killer was. Her mother runs, and she is forced to stay with the king and kind of heal him and make him better, even though she was the one that tried to kill him. And maybe they form a bit of a connection, and she always has this fear that her mother's going to come back into the picture. So lots of high stakes in that one. I think that's going to be a really good fantasy romance. Much like F.T. Lukens, whose books I always put on these lists, the same goes for Rebecca Ross. All her books sound amazing. I own a few of them. I just never get to them, and that's going to change. This new one from her sounds really good. It's the start of a new series. It's called Divine Rivals, and the tagline is, "No god, no creature, no war can come between them." This is a story following warring gods, and we're following one girl who is a journalist, and she has an enemy who's a rival journalist, and her brother ends up disappearing, or something happens to him during this war, and she starts writing letters to her brother, and they magically disappear, and she's getting responses, and they just happen to be from the rival journalist. I don't know how all that works, but I think it's a love story as well. So I think the bottom paragraph of the synopsis summarizes it well. So it says, when two young rival journalists find love through a magical connection, they must face the depths of hell in a war among gods to seal their fate forever. Shadow and Bone meets lore in this epic enemy to lovers fantasy novel, filled with hope and heartbreak and the unparalleled power of love. So that sounds like it's going to be incredible. Coffee break. I desperately need a drink of coffee right now. I feel like I always lose my voice at the end of these videos, but more so right now after I'm getting over being sick. Speaking of the lore comparison, we actually have a new book from Alexandra Bracken, who wrote lore, and this is Silver in the Bone. Break the curse before it breaks you. What I know about this one is that it's an Arthurian retelling. It's fueled by love, revenge, and pure adrenaline. So I think this is going to be a fun one. In this story, we're following Tasman, whose father has disappeared, and 10 years later we find out that it is rumored her father actually ran away with a really powerful ring, and her brother just happens to be cursed, and this ring is the one thing that could help him. So she goes on a journey to find her father, and also the only person that can help her, of course, seems to be a popular theme in this month's releases, is her arch nemesis. So this is the first in a series. I've been hearing some good things about it. I always tend to like Arthurian retellings, so I'm hopeful about this one. This next book is being billed as Bridgerton meets the Count of Monte Cristo, and this is Queen Bee by Emily Howard. And I know that this is like a revenge story, Regency romance, which sounds like a good time. To me, it says, Lady Alva Delvey knows the exact moment her life was changed forever, when her best friend Poppy betrayed her without qualm over a boy, the son of a duke. She was sent away in disgrace, her reputation ruined. So she's sent to an English countryside for years where she can just seethe in her anger and come up with a plan for revenge, and she finds a way to infiltrate the English high society, and she ends up meeting the boy that she loved, and she is wondering if revenge is worth it or if there's more to live for. So I like this. Is kind of reminding me of Reputation a little bit. I think that this is like the kind of Regency romance that appeals to me, so we'll see. Spoiler alert for my next video, but I joined Team Ilma for Ramathon, so that is a sci-fi nonfiction team. So there's a sci-fi that I'm really excited about coming out in April, on April 4th, and it is a novella, so this is perfect. It is called The Scourge Between Stars by Ness Brown. The tagline is "Don't open the door," which is creepy enough. It's perfect because I think this is a sci-fi horror, and you get extra points if it's a hybrid genre, so that is exciting. It's a tense, claustrophobic sci-fi horror blend set aboard a doomed generation ship harboring something terrible within its walls. So this is following the captain of a ship called Calypso, and this is Jacqueline, and she's in charge of keeping the rest of humanity safe as they return to Earth after they failed to colonize another planet. And as they're returning to Earth, they realize that there's something scary and sinister aboard the ship. So it's all about their fight for survival, and I think that whole concept just sounds really good. This next book seems to fall into that really weird literary fiction category that tends to appeal to me, and this is Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. And it follows a young musician into the elite, beauty-obsessed world where perfection comes at a staggering cost. So our main character ends up working at this company called Holistic, and they do really weird procedures like sucking out Botox, and they have spider silk extensions and things like this. And she becomes really close with the owner's niece, and she starts getting really weird procedures as well. I think it goes really dark. Like, what procedures? It says that all the while our narrator is plied with products that slim her thighs, smooth her skin, and lighten her hair, and beneath these creams and tinctures lies something sinister. So I think this is going to be really interesting commentary. And then the last book for April 4th, finally, is The Last Heir to Blackwood Library by Hester Fox, another author I've been meaning to read from for ages, and this is in post-World War I England. A young woman inherits a mysterious library and must untangle its powerful secrets. So this young girl loses her brother in the war, and she really doesn't know where to do with her life next. She inherits this manor. She decides to go there. She is really drawn to the library. All of the servants and the butler of this manor tell her to stay away from the library, but she can't resist, and she starts to unlock the secrets. So a lot of my buzzwords, I love historical fantasy, love anything with libraries, so I have high hopes for that one as well. I lied, it's not April 18th that has all the books I'm excited about, it's actually April 11th. So the first one is obviously Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. I think we're all really excited for this. Fonda Lee obviously wrote Jade City. This is a novella by her. It's kind of billed as revenge fantasy, but those who've read it have said it's more about like animal companions, which actually kind of appeals to me more. So we're following a character named Hester who keeps losing her family, and she wants to train. What kind of animal is this? I should know this. I've read this. I've read this synopsis so many times at this point because I'm so excited about it. So she is paired with like a fledgling rock, and we follow her as she trains this rock and the connection that they have together, and as she seeks revenge for her family. So I've just heard it's really powerful. Then a book from an author that I love who wrote novellas in the past, and this is her first full-length novel. So this is Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh, who wrote Silver in the Woods, which I really, really liked, and the sequel. It's not coming to my mind right now. I'm kind of foggy in the head at the moment, but I loved that duology, so I'm excited to have a full-length novel from her. And the tagline is, while we live, the enemy shall fear us, which is awesome. So in this story, Earth has been destroyed, Some people have survived in this station called the Gaia Station, and they are seeking revenge, and they're training for the day where they will get revenge, and her main character is like the most powerful weapon. But something goes awry and she realizes that she's gonna have to do it on her own, and we follow her and some other characters on the journey to avenge Earth. And I think that it's gonna be really quirky but also pretty epic, because it says, alongside of her brother's friend and a lonely captive alien, she escapes from everything she's ever known into a universe far more complicated than she was taught and far more wondrous than she could have ever imagined. So the fact that she's on the journey with a little alien, I'm in love with that, so I can't wait for that one. And then, oh, I'm just so excited for this one because it's a new Abby Jimenez, who wrote my favorite romance of all time, Part of Your World. She has a new one coming out, yours truly. I've seen arcs everywhere. So many people have read this, said it's even better than Part of Your World, which is really hard for me to wrap my head around, but we're actually following a character who was in Part of Your World. So this is Dr. Brianna Ortiz, and I said in a past video that I don't love books set in hospitals, but I think this will be an exception, so I hope so. And she is working in this hospital. Her engagement has ended. She's in a bad place. Her brother is sick and needs a kidney transplant, and she had like a unfortunate first meeting with a fellow doctor in the building, and obviously they end up having a romance, and from what I can tell, he is a match for his brother, and it maybe donates his kidney. So I think this is gonna make me cry. Abby Jimenez always has deeply emotional romances. There's always some kind of trigger warning in there. I would never say they are always easy reads, but so much chemistry. She always handles these things pretty well, except we won't talk about Friend Zone. We pretend that one doesn't exist, but everything else I have loved. So you just know, I already know I'm gonna love this one. So on April 13th, we have an indie romance coming out that I've just fallen in love with the series so much, and I'm so anxious to get my hands on a copy of this book, and I will be reading it the day it comes out. And this is That Time I Drugged a Dragon, and this is the third book in the Mead Mishap series. The first one is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. These are just my perfect fantasy romance books. They're quirky, they're fun, they're silly, they're ridiculous, and I just love every second of reading these. And I'm gonna read you the synopsis because it's short and it just will really sell you on the book. I love the way that, oh, the author, by the way, is Kimberly Lemming. I love the way that she writes her synopsis. So it says, when I was a little girl, my ma used to read me stories every night. Some were epic adventures with high stakes and exciting twists, while others were of princesses trapped in towers guarded by fierce dragons. The pitiful princess would be stuck inside all day, pining for a Prince Charming to come and rescue her. I always hated those stories. I couldn't imagine why the lazy thing just didn't get up and leave. Ironic, since I was now stuck in that same situation. Turns out when a dragon holds you hostage, he doesn't just let you get up and leave. Who knew? When I thought I saw hope on the horizon, that hope was smashed to bits by, you guessed it, another damn dragon. So that tells you the tone of the story. I just love that series. April 18th, we have some really exciting ones. The first one is one I feel like I've been waiting for a while. This is the Fiancee Farce by Alexandra Bellefleur, and this is a sapphic romance between a girl who owns a bookstore and another girl who happens to be a model for romance covers. And the bookstore owner is tired of her family asking her when she's gonna get married, so she lies and tells everybody that she's actually in a relationship with the girl on the cover of this book. And it turns out that this model has to get married in order to get her inheritance, you know, that typical setup. She realizes, she hears through the grapevine that somebody's pretending to date her, so she just goes along with it, and they pretend to be engaged. So that sounds quirky and fun. I'm in love with this cover, so can't wait for that one. Then we have Sisters of the Lost Nation by Nick Medina. This is actually a debut. It says a young native girl's hunt for answers about the women mysteriously disappearing from her tribe's reservation led her to delve into the myths and stories of her people, all while being hunted herself in this atmospheric and stunningly poignant debut. And I've seen some really good reviews about that one already. I don't often put nonfiction on this list, but I really should. This one really stood up to me because I have like a collection of nonfiction centering shipwrecks. I never read them, but I own them and they intrigue me, and I will get to them eventually. So this one's gonna go on that list. And this is The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder by David Grann. And he happens to be the author of Killers of a Flower Moon, which is a book I read and really appreciated. and that one's being adapted as far as I remember. But The Wager is a page-turning story of shipwreck, survival, and savagery, culminating in a court-martial that reveals a shocking truth. The powerful narrative reveals the deeper meaning of the events on The Wager, showing that it was not only the captain and crew who ended up on trial, but the very idea of empire. So this takes place in 1742, and we are following this crew on The Wager. They are found on like a makeshift raft, 30 of them, and they tell this harrowing story of how they shipwrecked. They ended up on this island and how they survived and built this raft, and they're kind of seen as heroes. And then 3 other men show up on a different part of the world and they have a completely different story of what happened on this island, and all these people end up in court and to find what the real story was. So it's really about humans and what happens when you put a bunch of people on an island and they're forced to survive, and just human nature. I think this is going to be really, really interesting. I've never heard of this story before. Moving on to April 25th, and I love like these campy Jennifer Body-esque stories following teenage girls, either vampires or zombies. I just think that's fun, and that's definitely what This Delicious Death by Kayla Cottingham is. The tagline says, "It's a girl-eat-girl world," which I love. And it says, 3 years ago, the melting of Arctic permafrost released a pathogen of unknown origin into the atmosphere, causing a small percentage of people to undergo a transformation that became known as the hollowing. And this caused people to have to eat human meat to survive. So governments or scientists came up with a synthetic form of human meat that could sustain these people. So the world's kind of gone back to normal, and these 4 girls who have undergone the hollowing end up in a music festival. They have their little cooler meat, so they are good to go. But one of the girls ends up killing somebody, and they slowly realize it's happening all over the music festival, and somebody is drugging these people so that synthetic meat doesn't work anymore, so that they are killing people, and they have to figure out who's doing this to save themselves and others. So I think this is gonna be a campy good time. That's all I want from it. And we're gonna end with one that I'm not sure I will read. I'm still go back and forth on it, but I know a lot of people are gonna be excited about this one, and that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I read Book Lovers and I had mixed feelings about it. I honestly didn't love it, and it's the only Emily Henry I've ever read, and I've kind of been put off from trying her other stuff, so I don't know. Her premises always sound really good to me. So this one is about a couple who broke up months ago, and they make a pact to pretend to still be together for their annual week-long vacation with their best friends. But I've actually heard, I've seen some reviews that it's a bit harder to read and more heartbreaking than you might expect from the synopsis, so I think it's important to know that going in. So that is it. That is all the books on my radar. My voice is shot at this point. Let me know if you've read any of these, if any of them are on your radar, which ones I've missed. I'd love to talk about them. I'll see you in my next video. Thanks for the support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.